cameras on. It is an interactive class.
Mate,
Hey. Good.
did you lose power with the storm and the crazy?
Just for a couple of hours. All right, so let's test your knowledge. Bodie, I'm gonna have to take you off because it is against the law for you to be driving on a Zoom call. And that is for you and for us here.
Oh my God, so sorry, didn't know that. Okay, I'll get on when I'm on the computer.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Okay, how are days counted on the trip contract?
Calendar days.
You count the weekends and holidays? I have 1B. Yeah, it's calendar days. You count every single day. With the first day being the day after it's executed. If the refrigerator is listed on the MLS, but it's not mentioned in the contract, will it convey?
I'm trying not to answer all the questions, Mitch. These are
I
good.
understand. Anybody want to take a stab at it? Yes, no? It's listed on there, so does it stay?
It depends if it's not in the.
No, if it's not on the contract, it does not stay. The MLS is not an agreement.
Right.
More agents buy refrigerators because it is on the MLS, but they don't ask for it.
Me and Ethan bought one in 2018.
Yep, you need to do the non-realty addendum. Okay, paragraph 5 asks for the escrow agent. Who is the escrow agent? Is it Liz Smith? She'll be doing the paperwork, the documentation. Liz Smith, she's the person I used to review all closing forms and have the buyers sign. Liz Smith, somewhere title or just somewhere title?
Somewhere title.
Good job.
Somewhere title, yes. Escrow agent is the entity that holds the money for the completion of the contract. Right. If the contract is executed on Thursday, when is the the earnest money and option fee due? Sunday, Saturday, Monday, or Tuesday?
Monday.
Okay, yep. So you've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But because the third day falls on a weekend, you're gonna go to the next business day, which makes it Monday. Good job. Which contract do you use for a triplex? Commercial property improved because this allows it to be rented. Texas multiple unit contract or the TXR 1-4?
See.
And 1-4. Have you ever seen the multiple units contract? Yeah, it doesn't exist. Paragraph 22, these are addenda. Which one of these items would you mark as an addenda to the contract? The MUD, HOA, POA, sale of other property, addendum for a backup offer, IABS or disclosure of relationship with home warranty company.
D.
22 addendums check out by.
Would you attach the MUD?
No, that's a tax rate. That's a
Yep.
tax.
That's a disclosure.
The HOA that's not the name of the HOA. Maybe the head.
Well, the HOA you would, we have an addenda from the
But
Property
that's
Owners
not an
Association.
That's just,
Oh, I'm just using the documents.
BCD.
Yeah, so you would attach the POA. Addendum for property located in the Property Owners Association. And you would attach the addendum
the,
for the sale of other property. And if you have it, you would be attaching the addendum for backup. IABS and disclosure, no,
no,
because they're not addendas to the contract. Okay, we'll look at that paragraph. Do you still have a contract if the buyer doesn't deposit the earnest money?
yes,
What's
Yes.
it?
it's a default contract, but you still have a contract.
Yeah, you still have a contract, the buyer could be held in default and the seller could terminate the contract at that point. Okay, rules related to contract forms. The commission may adopt rules in the public's best interest that require license holders to use contract forms prepared by the Texas Real Estate Broker Lawyer Committee and adopted by the commission. Commission may not prohibit license holders from using for the sale, exchange, option, lease, or interest in real property contracts forms that is prepared by an attorney. Prepared by an attorney required by the property owner. Yes, as licensees, we must use the TREC promulgated forms. We must use the current one. Not using the TREC forms or using a repealed form, TREC can take your license. Okay, now let's switch over. I just went to agents only, our website. If you come down, it's in the compliance sample contracts.
Was that been updated?
Yes. There's not all of them in there, but yeah. So we look at the 1-to-4 contract.
That was so much fun, Mitch.
Thank you.
I love a quiz.
Really well. Okay, the most recent edition of this form is November 7th of 2022. November 4th of 2024 will probably have this form. So they have proposed a lot of changes to all the different contracts and a couple of the addenda, like the third-party financing addenda. But for now, this is what we use. Who are the parties to the contract in paragraph 1? The buyers and the sellers.
Iron sellers,
Who is not a party to the contract?
the agents.
The realtor. We are not a party to the contract. The title company is not a party to the contract. It is between the buyer and the seller. So you want to use for the seller, the names as they appear on the tax record or on the deed. And then for the buyers, you want to use their complete legal name. So you want to see what's the name that they're going to be using. What's the name on the ID they'll be using at closing? So if I'm taking my passport, what's my name on there? And then paragraph 2 is the property. You need the complete legal description as it's written on the tax record.
About the names, so when people are for the representation agreement for buyers.
Mhm.
Let's say if they put a maiden name, but then on the passport is another name.
They need to use what's on the passport
So if
or
they-
whatever. If they have to have an ID for that name, title's gonna make them happen.
So for the representation agreement, let's say they gave me another name, you know, do I need to change the representation
You
agreement
need to do an
to
amendment
match
to
this one?
the buyer's code
Okay,
to show them.
Mitch, we had an issue yesterday. I got a question too.
Okay. So
The buyer agent was required to give 5,000 of their commissions. And from the listing agent for them to do the deal. And the buyer agent said, okay, I'll do it. But they were trying to do it on an amendment to contract when we aren't as agents party to the contract. And I didn't see a way that I could advise that agent to say buyer agent's gonna give you their commission. But the buyer agent doesn't sign that. How can the buyer and seller agree to that way? I didn't.
The buyer was going to give his compensation like to closing cost?
The buyer agent was to forfeit 5,000 of their commission, however they want to say that.
Where was it gonna go? Was it just gonna stay with the seller?
Who's gonna stay with the seller?
Then that would be an agreement between brokers.
Right, that's not, okay, thank you. That was just making sure we're not a party to this contract. So the
Right,
buyer, the
now-
seller can't enter us into an agreement.
Yeah. If the buyer's agent says that they're going to donate 5,000 of their commission to buyer's closing cost, well, then that needs to be in the contract. So you put it in special provisions or do an amendment stating it.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Sure. So you want the complete legal description as it appears on the tax record. So lot, block, River Park West, section 5. All of that has to be in there for you to have the legal description. You want to be real careful with it. This morning I was looking at one, lot and block were switched. So they were selling the wrong property. If there is, sometimes you'll have these legal descriptions that are this long. You can put see special provisions and write the entire legal description out. You see that a lot with more of rural properties. It has abstract blah, blah, blah. And then which city is it in? And which county? You must have the county name. Each county is going to have different legal description. You could have the same thing. And then the street address. What's it known as? And the zip code. Okay.
Do you think that the to this point?
Up to this point, no.
These things changes?
No. Yes, it changes. Yeah, they just looked at these on Friday and pushed it forward. So they still have to go to the commission. Once the commission looks at them, they'll go out for a 30-day comment period before they actually put them into use. They're projecting November. November. Mhm. All right, paragraph 2, B and C, improvements and accessories. Improvement, something that's permanently installed on the home. Something that is going to, either something's gonna have to be removed to get to it, or it's gonna leave damage to the home. And that's can be appliances, valances, screens, shutters, awnings, water wall, carpeting, mirrors, ceiling fans, attic fans, mailboxes, television antennas, and mounts and brackets. Okay, so it's not the television. The television is going to be personal property. It's what holds to the property, what they've attached it to the wall with. Those stay. Where we have had issues, ceiling fans. People put in some really nice ceiling fans and they decide they want to take it with them. They stay. Chandeliers and lighting fixtures are another place where we have issues. Seller decides they want those. These are the same, this paragraph B and C is the exact same on the listing agreement and the buyer's representation. Not on the buyer's representation, but on the listing agreement. Do you want to go over it? So that the seller knows this is what's expected to stay in the home. If there's anything in these 2 paragraphs that they want to take with them, they need to put it as an exclusion in D. With your buyers, always go over the contract with them before you go under contract. so they know what they're looking at when you come into a home. Accessories. Window air conditioning units, stoves, fireplace screens, curtains and rods, and blinds and window shades and draperies. Those are things that sometimes get taken out right before close. You go do your walkthrough and there's no drapes and there's no curtains. They stay. Oh,
The curtains have to stay.
curtains? Yeah, it's in here. Curtains and rods,
Unless you put them on the special.
unless you make them an exclusion. Above ground pools, swimming pool equipment and maintenance, artificial fireplace logs. Those are normally hooked up to gas, so you have a plumber that installs them. And then they've added security systems that are not fixtures and controls for garage doors, entry gates, other improvements and accessories. Controls include seller's transferable rights to the software and applications used to access and control improvements or accessories, and hardware used solely to control improvements and accessories. What is that saying? Those Ring cameras we put on our shelves, or if we had a camera sitting in here, even though it's just hooked up to power, it stays. Part of the security system for the home. With that, I have an app. What's in my living room? I can pull my living room up right here. So when I sell the house, I'm going to have to transfer that app to the buyer. So I'm going to give them the password and the user's name, and then the seller has to get rid of everything. And because there's so many things that we now control, you can control drapes, you can control your garage door open. Best practice for listing agents is have the seller go ahead and change all of their access to the same username and the same password. Real easy then to give that over. Now I know about y'all, you always have a different username and a different password for every single app, correct? Shake your head perfectly. Yeah, and none of those go over to your accounts, right?
Right.
So yeah, have them go ahead and switch it off, because later on in the contract, it's going to say they have to give that in writing to buyers. Anything in here that is not going to stay needs to be put in exclusions, paragraph 2D. Always look at the MLS. I always check on the front page, there's a place for exclusions. And then I also check what they may have attached. And you may want to actually give a call to the listing agent. Now with these, issue that came up just recently, ceiling fan was an exclusion. Exclusions, the following improvements and accessories will be retained by seller and must be removed prior to delivery and possession. Does it say in there that anything has to be put in its place? No. Buyers were very upset when they went to the home. The chandelier was gone, but it was just wires hanging from the ceiling. Doesn't say they have to replace it. So it behooves whoever's the buyer's agent to write that into the contract. Reservations for oil and gas, it's on a separate form. Okay, paragraph 3.
Do you find out if their reservation for gas?
You're gonna ask the listing agent.
You're,
You need to ask the seller. Yeah. Oh, in our area, it's very rare that I ever see reservation for oil and gas because most people don't have the rights to it. The developers had those, or whoever first owned the property maintained the mineral rights to it.
and for the easements, you're probably gonna ask the title, right?
For easement, that's gonna be on the survey.
Sure.
All right, so paragraph 3, cash. Cash is cash. Cash portion of sales price does not include proceeds from borrowing of any kind or selling any other real property except as disclosed in the contract. So if you're getting money from mom and dad, that's not cash. You don't have the money. This is how much money they are going to bring to the table. And then B is how much are they going to finance? And maybe I have $1,000 for cash. I'm gonna finance 2,000. I'm gonna purchase the house for 3,000. With the financing, is it going to be third-party financing? Loan assumption or seller financing? Always double check to make sure that A plus B equals C. Be very careful with your periods and your commas, because it's real easy to make a $500,000 home into a $500 home by pushing the wrong key. And it happened a while back. It went from 500,000 to 5,000 on the amendment. Luckily, the sellers and buyers were agreeable to changing it. Paragraph 4, or lease, I should say, does anyone have any questions about paragraph 3, sales price? Pretty cut and dry?
Yep, just get it right.
Yeah, double check your work. Leases in paragraph 4. If there is a lease on the property when you go under contract, when you make the offer, this needs to be disclosed. I have a residential lease. I have a tenant in there, but they're moving out the end of July. But I go under contract today, I want that residential lease. What if they don't move out? Then that buyer's becoming a landlord.
Of a whole
Look
lot.
at the seller's disclosure for fixture leases. It's gonna be finance amount. And really, it's gonna be up to the lender where they want it. And of course, a lot of times the lenders want the monies seasoned as a gift. Check your seller's disclosure, section 1. It says if something is owned or leased, solar panels, security systems, water softeners, and satellite dish are the 4 that are on there. Look to see if those are owned or leased. If they have leased on there, you need to do the Texas TXR 1954. If there's any verbal leases, it's gonna go on that also. Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Verbal leases, Mitch?
Even verbal leases.
Those
They
family
put it on
member
both-
deals?
I'm sorry?
Like those family member arrangements?
Yeah, and mainly I've seen it with residential leases instead of fixture leases. Yeah, it's gonna
Right.
be that friend or that person who's lived in the house for so long, but we never really did a lease. That you still have to, they still have to disclose that, and the buyer has to be willing to become a landlord. Natural resources leases, it's gonna be a different form. The seller has delivered a copy of natural resources lease, or seller has not delivered a copy, and how long they have to give it to them. This information here is in these addenda, the 1953 for leases and the 1954 for fixture leases. Listing agents, read the seller's disclosure. It's your responsibility to read the seller's disclosure. If they have put down there that the security system is leased, ask them. I see a lot of them that say lease, and it's truly being monitored. They own the equipment, and they're just paying for someone to watch it. And they'll put it as leased, and then it goes a whole nother. All right. Paragraph 5, earnest money. What is earnest money? How would you tell your buyer what earnest money is?
It's what allows you to have an option period,
Nope, that's gonna be the option fee. This is earnest money.
the earnest money.
I'm serious, your clients are.
It's the amount of money you put back to, so you can have a period offering
Okay.
on the table.
No, that's not with residential. Yeah, other contracts, context. Earnest money, I look at it as skin in the game. How much is that buyer willing to risk? How much is it normally?
It's negotiable, but it's
It's
typically
negotiable.
1%.
And a lot of people put 1%. Okay, this is a place we can start to negotiate without touching paragraph 3. Buyer's agents, 1% for earnest money. What if I and my buyers do 1.5%? Does my offer look a little bit better than the next one? Is my buyer willing to risk a little bit more?
Yep.
Yep. So who maintains the earnest money? The escrow agent. Like we said earlier, the escrow agent is the title company. National Republic title. And then whatever address. The buyers need to know where the money's going to, and the sellers need to know where they're going to be closing. And then option. What is an option period?
Come on, someone from coaching, you can do it.
Come on.
The time the buyer has to do their inspections.
No.
It's the time, it's the time in which you have to back out of the contract as a buyer.
That's right. It
There
is
you
the
go.
exclusive right to back out of the contract. During that time, you want to advise the buyers to do their inspections, negotiate repairs, get your insurance binder. What happened last Monday? We had a hurricane. If there is a hurricane coming, insurance companies will stop writing insurance. So get it when right away. Also, depending on where they're purchasing, maybe they have to have flood insurance. Maybe they have to have wind insurance. Now, the contract says the property has to be insurable. Doesn't say that it has to be a certain price. I remember having a buyer, they were buying, I don't remember the name of the subdivision in Brazoria County. Left side of the street, if you're going down, no wind insurance. Right side, wind insurance. Yes, there always has to be a line someplace. They could still qualify for the loan, but it was more than they were willing to pay. Since we were in the option period, they terminated the contract. All they were risking, all they paid out was their option fee. So it's the time to do your due diligence. It must be paid for. You always have to have a dollar amount if you're going to have an option. A1, buyer shall deliver additional earnest money up to the escrow agent within how many days? Why would anybody want to do that? Does
Another
your
to
offer-
negotiate
Yeah, does your offer look a little bit better?
without
We still haven't
changing
gone
paragraph.
back to paragraph 3 and changed anything. So let's say we're going to do 1% here, and then in A, they're going to do, another $2,000 to be delivered on day 11. So if I have 10 for option, I'm going to do it the day after. So we kind of get through that option period, and then Mr. Seller will willing to risk a little bit more. Haven't touched paragraph 3. Does it look a little bit better than the other offer that may be coming in? Now, delivery of the earnest money and option money, it is within 3 days of the execution of the contract, unless that third day falls on a Saturday, a Sunday, or a holiday. So if we execute, if we execute the contract tomorrow, when is it due? Tomorrow's Friday. 3 days. Which day?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Monday.
Monday.
Because Friday is day 0.
0.
Saturday would be day 1. Sunday, day 2. Monday, day 3. You still count the holidays and the weekends It's only if day 3 falls on one of them that you go to the next business day.
Also needed 3.
Only if day 3 falls on the weekend or the holiday, then it's the next business day. And it says in 3 there that any monies that the title company gets will go first to the down payment and the closing costs. That money's going to come back to them unless they exercise the option. B, termination of option. How many days are you requesting the exclusive right to back out of a contract? Look at your calendar. Make sure you're not doing day 10 on a weekend, that gets hard, or on a holiday. And it must be, oh, I should ask you a question. Earnest money and option, what time does it have to be in by on day 3?
5 p.m.
You sure? That's termination. Earnest money and option has to be delivered by 11:59 on day 3.
So I think that before we used to say 5 o'clock because the title company would be closed at 5 o'clock, but now everyone does like the Zocum app, so there's really no time.
Exactly.
Say that again?
Because of the apps that you can use to deposit the earnest money and the option, they could do it after close of business. So they have until 11:59. That's why on day 4, you need to be checking with the title company. Was it delivered was it, I don't want to say, was it deposited through your app after close of business on the 3rd day? But there's only one place in the contract where there's a time, and that's for termination of the option. It's 5 p.m. on the last day. This was a great change a few years ago. So you used to not have a time, and you would be negotiating right up till 11:59. So they have to exercise the option. If they want to get out of the contract, they have to do it within this many days here on the option. Don't, and we see this way too often, it really burns people. We'll see agents that'll send over a termination form and an amendment, thinking that they're going to show this seller, either you agree to this or we terminate. And guess what? If they sign a termination, it's terminated. There's no negotiating. It is done. If the buyer fails to deliver the earnest money within the time required, seller may terminate the contract. It's the only place that the seller can terminate. They're going to say, no, I don't trust you. We're not going to do this. They terminate. They keep the, well, most of the time they're not even going to have the option money. If they fail to deliver the option money, they just haven't bought an exclusive right back out of the contract. One thing title does, though, is any monies that they receive, option comes out of it first. So if they have 1,000 for earnest and 500 for option, and they send them a check for 1,000, first 500 of that goes to purchase the option, and the buyer will still be short 500 on the earnest money, and seller can still terminate the contract. Time is of the essence for this paragraph, and strict compliance with time performance is required. The agents who executed on Friday before the hurricane, they had issues getting the money to the title companies, so everything was down. Yes, Jocelyn.
So I have a question about that allocation of money. So let's say if that is the case, if the earnest was supposed to be 1,500, but they only paid, yeah, like they only paid a 1,500, they didn't pay the option. So then let's say 500 of that was paid towards the option. But what if they ended up canceling during option period? And then they're expecting that 1,500 back in the earnest money.
You wanna make it really sticky, don't you?
But it
They're
would just
only gonna
be
get
like,
back what- They're only gonna get back what they deposited.
like what was allocated towards the earnest, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
what they actually paid, so basically, they'd only get 500. Because 500 of that was used for the option. The seller could still take legal action against them
If they canceled during option.
doing the option, and they hadn't deposited the full earnest money.
Mhm.
Title policy, what's the title policy? What is title doing when they are issued a title policy? It is title insurance, but what they're doing is they're looking as far back as they can on this title. They say to the sovereignty of the property to see if there's any flags. You know, we were married when we bought the property, now we're divorced. So they're gonna look and make sure, what does that divorce decree says? If we were married when we bought it, now I'm married to her. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stick my name.
You didn't lose much. They'll look to see, and this happened last year. He passed away. So she goes and they're gonna sell the property. Well, guess who comes up? His girlfriend, who has a child by him that he actually had accepted. So all of a sudden, title finds out that there is another person that has legal rights to this property. That's what they're looking for. Make sure there's no one's gonna come out of the woodwork saying, I own part of this property. And when I say they go back to the sovereignty of the property, we bought property acreage in New Mexico. Our title policy shows the date that that land was granted from the King of Spain. It went back and forth. Yeah, it was amazing. It was really cool. I'm a history buff. Over new territory. Saw a title policy from there when I first got my license. And it showed where the land was granted by the Republic of Texas to a family. It showed where he went off to California Gold Rush and never came back. She declared him dead. So it showed that she now owned the property, and then it showed the children that inherited all the way down to the developer. That is what they're looking for. A couple of years ago, there was one here in Houston. It had not changed hands outside of the family for 5 or 6 generations. So they had to go back and research all of that to find out who owned the property. You don't want someone coming up, a year from now and you saying, I was married to him. Now on hack.
Five died, and they had one child, and now he's a kid, 26-year-old. And he's trying to sell this property now that he entered a new marriage. But they had to do a heirship affidavit,
of heirship.
and we're working through that. And yeah, so they're asking for reference. I have no idea why.
What they're doing is, since they were a married couple, I guess he died intestate.
Yeah,
No
they
will? Okay, so what they want is, let's say you were the sister of the people who owned it. They're gonna go to you and they want you to sign an affidavit that, yes, this child was of this marriage and you know of no other child outside of the marriage. Because there was no will.
So that's what they want. What do you need reference for?
They have to have somebody that's known, because we did it with my mother's mom's property, her sisters had to sign the affidavit saying that, yeah, my parents were married, these are the 3 kids. Yeah. That's what they're looking. The moral of that story is have a will and update it, which I haven't. Now, who's going to pay for it? Val, what's the answer?
It's negotiable.
Exactly.
Negotiable.
Any question you ask about that, you're always gonna say it's negotiable. Everything's negotiable.
But normally it's just a
Not necessarily.
Depends.
It depends. All right, so like you said, normally it's the seller. How about if the buyer pays for it? You offer it a little bit better? Yeah. Why not split it?
I have,
So if you're going to split it, you're gonna check both the boxes
Where's that?
right here.
That-
Title
oh,
policy
okay.
shall furnish, seller shall furnish to buyer at
Check and check.
check and check.
Okay.
And it's gonna be issued by, normally it's gonna be the same title company that you're closing at. You can't say customarily it's the seller that pays for it. Can the seller say you have to close with this title company? Or we're not gonna take your offer?
It's negotiable. Everything's negotiable.
Yeah, and the seller cannot make the sale of the property contingent on using a certain title company. And if the seller's paying for it though, they can say, well, if I'm paying for it, this is where we're gonna go to.
So the way I get around that is I pretty much like the title's already clean. And they've already, what's the word that like if they go to a title company and then
Open title.
open title.
Yeah.
Because if they wanna move to their title company, it's gonna take
Start over.
more business days and it's gonna start over
And that's smart if you think there could be anything on the
with the
title.
title, yeah.
Like if you knew there was debt, then go ahead and open title. Get them to start that research to move quicker. All right, now with the title policy, there are certain things that when the buyer gets it back, they cannot object to. Restrictive covenants common to the platted subdivision. Covenants that were put in place usually by the developer. Standard printed exceptions for standby fees, taxes, assessments, liens created as part of a financing described in paragraph 3. The buyer can't say, oh, wait a minute, you're gonna put a lien on my house? Utility easements, reservations, standard printed exceptions as to marital rights, state of Texas. If you're married, it's gonna be community property. Exceptions for waters, tidelands, beaches, streams, etc. And then you have standard printed exceptions as to discrepancies, conflicts, shortages in area or boundary lines, encroachments or protrusions or overlapping improvements. This you can think of as a rider to your insurance. Yeah. It is a very small percentage of the title policy premium. If you want to know exactly, ask your title company. This would be in simplest terms, you purchase this property and a year or two down the way, you find out that the fence, when it was put in, it's 1 foot over. So maybe on the right-hand side, it's 1 foot over. So this neighbor has an extra foot. And then on this side, you've got the extra foot. And then this house sells. And this buyer says, I want that extra foot. If they've paid for this, you can do a title claim and title is going to make it right. They'll either move the fence or figure out how to make it right. It's such a small amount. I recommend you negotiate.
So it's something they can buy.
It's something they can buy.
It's a rider, like
Yeah.
when you get a cancer, the cancer
Yes.
rider on
Yeah,
your, okay,
exactly.
something
Yeah,
like that.
that's the best way to think of it.
Okay.
Right. And then commitment. Title company has 15 days to get you the title commitment. But if they can't get in that time, they give them another so many days. Another 15 days. If you are a buyer's agent or a listing agent and it's taken more than 10 days, I bet there's something on that title that they're trying to figure out. That should be a red flag to us to be following. Yeah, there's one change here in 4 I just noticed. Why did we just freeze?
Uh-oh. Did he say what happened?
Did we get kicked out?
As a whole group? Oh,
Yeah, I think he
I'm
left
blaming
us.
Melanie.
I Yeah, no, he went silent on us. I think he had to go find something. Didn't he say something on paragraph 4 changed that he wasn't aware of? Did I make that up?
It was Melanie's question, and he
It
just,
was. I threw him off.
I went, am I tripping?
He said absolutely not.
No, he's off the call. He got
Yeah.
disconnected.
He
But
left, did he? He left the
who
room?
came to host then? Me?
Uh-oh.
You bet. Uh-oh. You need to take over the
Oh.
class. Go ahead, Bill.
Mitch, are you there?
No, he's not there. He's gone.
Yeah.
He gone.
Maybe he can jump back on.
I sent
Yeah.
him
I
a
heard
text
him, and
message. Maybe he'll
I
see
thought
it.
I heard him. Sonny, are you at the office?
No.
The whole group at the office is gone.
What if their power went out again? Oh, no.
Oh,
I was
Hey,
just about to say that, Mel.
Oh, I bet they lost it again.
yeah.
Mitch is
So
not
half of
going
our
to
neighborhood's
call.
out today again.
No.
Oh, yes.
It is useless to try to message him. He is not looking at his phone, that's for sure.
No.
Here. Yeah, he's out.
I'm signing
Yeah,
back in. He just told me he's signing back in. Oh, I hear him love us.
He
Well, I'll
ditched
answer
us.
the question that Melanie put in. You got to understand it's very simple. Those shortages in the area for an insurance policy are saying, say you use the current survey, the existing survey, and that fence is actually not included on that survey. Now they've resurveyed it. Do you want them to come out and adjust that policy to include that fence? If you do want that, who's going to pay for it? And I typically say, buyer, you pay for it. It's how you're moving forward. Why would the seller care about what you're about to insure going forward? However, it's negotiable. And then their question is going to be, well, how much is that? Title companies say it's about $40 per 100K on a house. So for a $400,000 house, we're talking $160 for the fence to be covered. I mean,
It's worth it.
nominal fee for a big problem. Look at just happened with Barrow and knock down all the fences and whose fences whose and oh man, I'm just saying.
Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mitch, we're here. We want to be involved.
I think he's trying.
Yeah, he's got to be trying. I've been there. You're trying to teach a class and the weather.
Okay, can y'all hear me now?
Yay!
Okay.
Yay! He's back.
I don't know what happened. Everything just went away.
Your electricity go out?
No, and it was just in this room.
What? Thank you so much for getting us back.
Dark. Okay, survey.
He's going in and out. Is it just my service?
Is it going in and out?
I hear you
That was
better now.
good. That was
Yeah,
good.
that was good.
Before it was a little.
Is this?
Nope, that was a little blurry.
Okay. Hello, hello.
Better.
Better. Okay, so survey.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So with the survey, we recommend that the buyer always gets a new survey. Then it is the buyer's survey. If the seller is going to provide one, make sure you read it. If it is copyrighted, you can't provide it. Sellers can't provide it. A lot of them also have in print for this transaction only, not to be provided to subsequent buyers. They can't use it. Plus, I'm a buyer. I get the survey from you, and then I find out there's an issue. So I call him because he was a surveyor and say, there's a problem with this survey. I never did a survey for you. I did a survey for her. You know, the buyer and the seller's taking on a little bit of risk, I guess. So with survey, C1 is if the seller is going to provide it. And then within how many days? Seller shall furnish the survey in residential real affidavit promulgated by Texas Department of Insurance, the T47.
Right.
Change proposed. They're going to say the T47 or declaration. So if they don't use the promulgated form, they can use a declaration. I think that's gonna probably come from a lawyer. Now this that's highlighted is bolded here. If the seller does not provide the survey and the T47 within the number of days, the buyer can get a new survey and seller pays for it.
What is T47? I'm sorry, that kind of threw me off.
The T47 is an affidavit that's promulgated by TREC. And that affidavit says, it gives the date, the names, it's gonna ask you, have there been any changes, and it has a date on there. And then there's a place that says, for any changes, you can write them out there. And on the T47, that paragraph says, if none, write none. And then it has to be signed by the sellers and notarized. And don't let someone tell you that you'll get it notarized at closing. Per the contract, if it's not complete, the seller buys a new one. As a buyer's agent, if you don't get it within the number of days, let title know.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just say-
On the T47, so I have a property right now. We had the T47 completely done, but since it was a new year, we did it in 2023. Title is asking us for an updated one at closing per the lender. Do we need to do it before closing now?
If you already have the T47, that's just, Trex says it's good. Lender may want a new one. So you're okay though.
Same thing with the.
Okay, perfect.
Seller typically provides it, pays for it, or it's
It's
negotiable.
negotiable.
Mitch, I have a stupid question. You know how you go into Dot Loop and grab the T47, you fill it all out. It's meant to be signed in front of a notary, not for your client to sign it through Dot Loop with you, correct?
Oh, most definitely. A notary, and when I notarize something, I'm saying that I have these people. I'm seeing them. Any notary who does not do that risks going to jail. If you have a notary who's just gonna sign something and notarize it and they never saw the people, then you need to find a different notary.
That-
So to protect your seller, can you still present a survey but request the buyer to get
You can use it as long as it's not copyrighted for informational purposes.
Information.
Yeah, sometimes I used to have it like, always had a listing book in the property that showed the different schools. If I had a survey, it would say on there for informational purposes only. Buyer will negotiate for a new one, something like that. Now, if the survey is sent to the title company and to the lender, and they say we don't accept it. And I was talking to an agent, there's been a couple of title companies who have looked and seen the copyright or that for this transaction only, and they haven't accepted. At that point, who's gonna pay for a new one? Buyer or seller? It's negotiable.
Right. To me, who's getting the mortgage? Who needs it? More, right?
Good, yeah. But who agreed to give it to them?
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't agree. I would just say, oh, you can't find it.
Yeah, it's always negotiable. You can always say that, you negotiate for a new one. Whether and number two, buyer pays for it, number three, seller pays for it. But both of those buyers get a new one. I would do at least minimum of 14 days on 2 and 3, maybe even 21 days, depending on what's going on in the market. You have to give that surveyor time to get out there, do the survey, and then get everything together.
When you say days, it's regular days.
It's calendar days. Everything is calendar days. And then we have objections. Buyer may object in writing to defects, exceptions, or encumbrances to title disclosed in the survey or other than item 6A, what we talked about earlier. Okay, what kind of contract are we looking at? A 1 to 4?
Residential.
Residential. You don't need to put residential in there because it's a residential contract. But it is applicable. You can leave it blank.
I have a question about that line.
Uh-huh.
I have an offer at the moment and we're selling, it's basically gonna be, lot value. The house is a tear down.
Okay.
And it is a builder. And they have put in this line, construction of 2 new homes.
That's perfect.
Okay, great.
That's what this line is actually, and that's how it's supposed to be used. If they're going to do anything outside of just live in the house. So it can be to construct 2 homes. It can be to Airbnb. It can be for lease. Maybe they want to raise chickens in the backyard. That's a make or break. They could put raised chickens, raised dogs, run a business, park an 18-wheeler. Anything that they're going to be doing on this home that's a make or break for them.
Paint
Got
the
it.
front door red. Blah, blah, blah.
Thank you.
Buyer may object the earlier of the closing or number of days. when I see this for compliance, and we are the listing broker, and there's no number of days in two, it's not gonna meet compliance. I'm gonna send it back to you. If you're the buyer's agent, we're the buyer's broker, if it's blank, I don't care. Because we have right up to the day of closing. As a listing agent, you sure don't want that buyer coming in on closing morning and say, I'm gonna object to this. Everything stops. I want it sooner. No. No, if you're the listing agent, there has to be days. Because what does zero mean? Yeah, so who's gonna have to decide? A judge,
A judge.
a judge. Put number of days in, get number of days in here. Listing agent, fewer days the better. Buyer's agent, the more days the better. But consider that I like 7 to 9 days. If you get something and that buyer wants to have it reviewed by a attorney or someone, give them enough time to do that, because if I get everything on Friday and you only have 3 days, then they have to do everything on Monday. Buyer's agents, if you have it blank, leave it blank. Listing agent, it must be something in. Now, if the buyer does object to anything, it must be done in writing. Objection that we had on one property we had listed was it had a build line, and one part of the house was over the build line by about a foot. And title wasn't going to insure it because of that. So the buyer objected. We had to go through, actually with them, all we had to do was go through the HOA and the city to get an objection stating that this 1 foot over is not an issue. We won't come and make you tear down the house. Yeah, it took a number of days. An objection we had was over a, I think it was an alleyway. And so that had to be cleared up. So we're gonna object in writing. And then the seller has 5 days to cure it, to make it right. If they do, then the buyer has a chance to re-inspect it, make sure it's okay. If they can't make it right, then they can waive it, say we accept the property as it is, we're gonna move forward. They can terminate and get their earnest money back. E-title notices, broker advises buyer to have an abstract of the title covering the property examined by an attorney of the buyer's selection. It's gonna be written by an attorney, but it's not their attorney. If they wanna have it looked at and checked, they need to get their own attorney. Homeowner, Property Owners Association. Is or is not? Easy answer. If it is in one, then you're gonna want to do the addenda for Property Owners Association, HOA.
If you as the buyer put their is on and their
Then
there's like
the seller's gonna have to pay somebody. They should know. If
Yeah.
they're withholding that material fact, then everyone's gonna be in trouble.
what do you do? There's one. And the seller didn't know who to pay the HOA because they changed HOA and she was trying to. Their terms. So it's like. She decided not to sell it. She's like, "Who to pay?"
You can go to hoa.gov.texas. State legislature in 2023 made it mandatory that their forms must be on that website. And it'll give you the numbers, it'll give you the transfer fees and the annual fees on the website.
So what's the name of it? Can you repeat that?
HOAs.gov.texas or .texas.gov, one of the two. If it is, you want to do that form.
Thank you.
Statutory tax districts, utility districts, talks about those. If the property abuts water that's affected by tides, that's what 4 is talking about, and there's an addenda. Annexation, if the property is not in a municipality, there's always a chance the municipality may come in and try to annex the property. I live in the county, Fort Bend, in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of Richmond. Now, Richmond may someday decide that there's a lot of tax revenue sitting here. We're going to annex. The state changed the rules, so there's a whole thing that goes through. All right, talks about property located in the certificate service area of a utility service provider, water code, public improvement districts, transfer fees. Property is subject to transfer fees. Changed. They're taking out some stuff. All right, transfer fee, propane gas system area. Now, this isn't the big silver tanks you see sitting outside of people's homes where a truck comes and fills it up every month or every 3 months, whatever. This is when there's a propane company like sitting here and they're piping that propane to these houses, kind of like natural gas, but propane. That's the only time you have to do a disclosure. There's only a handful of them in the state of Texas. The ones that I know of are like past the ordinance. Notice of water level fluctuations. This one's fun. After the drought we had about a decade ago, all the people who had bought property on, what is the lake right above Austin? Lake Travis?
Lake Travis is the famous one.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was Travis. Well, we had the drought and it dried up. All these people who had bought those multi-million-dollar properties were just up in arms because they bought waterfront property. And the state said, well, let's add this. The property adjourns an impoundment of water, including a reservoir lake constructed and maintained in Chapter 11 that has a storage capacity of at least 5,000 acre-feet. The water may go up and down. And there's like only one lake in the state of Texas that isn't man-made. These waters, they're gonna go up and down. We use it for droughts. And you know, in Texas, there's 2 seasons, drought and flood, no in between. All right, 11, the following notices have been given or attached to this contract. These are water district notices. Not all water districts is a MUD. So you're gonna put in here MUDs, PIDs, PUDs, WCIDs.
That's over my head.
A MUD is usually done when they're developing the property. So they're asking the municipality to put a MUD in and they're getting monies from the municipality. And then the municipality is going to start making everyone who lives there pay it back. Now, the MUD I'm in, they take care of our recycle, they take care of the walkways, they take care of the lighting. We have a really strong MUD. A WCID, similar to a MUD, but it's put in place after it's developed. And then you're just gonna put like Fort Bend MUD 121, Fort Bend LID, Levy Improvement District, the number. Public Utility District is gonna go in there. Now, changes. They are changing paragraph 11.
Real quick, on the 11, and you're saying MUD, WCID, PID, forgive me, but would that be in their legal description and you just gotta know and look for
It's
it, or
gonna
where do you
be
find
in
it?
the jurisdiction on the tax record.
On the tax record,
They're
okay,
paying taxes to this.
okay.
There was one, I saw the other day, Jack Rabbit Putt. It was down, Clear Lake, that area.
Jack
Yeah, Jack Rabbit. All right, what the change they proposed is they're changing paragraph 11 to certificate of mold remediation. If the property has been remediated for mold, seller must provide to buyer each certificate of mold damage remediation issued under statute 1958.154 of the Occupational Code during the 5 years preceding the sale of this property. That's great with the flooding we've had and houses having flood waters. Mr. Seller, you're responsible for providing it now with this update. And then what will be 12 is what is now 11. And they're rewriting that, hopefully make it a little bit easier to understand. It's the same verbiage, but in the parentheses, utilities, water, drainage, and public improvement districts. Seller's failure to provide applicable statutory notices may provide buyer with remedies, rights to terminate the contract. If they don't provide it, that buyer can walk away the day of closing and get their earnest money back. If they go past, then they're accepting it. Except if it's a PID, public improvement district. And that's where it gets sticky for us. Now, HAR has done a lot of research in our market area and added to the MLS. But let's say, and a PID is a public improvement district. I'm a developer. It's going to be beneficial to everybody if I put it in a nice park, but I can't afford it. So I go to the municipality and ask for a public improvement district, and they give me monies for it. Where it gets tricky is I'm on phase 1, and I'm not going to do that until phase 3. So it's not going to show up on the tax record until phase 3 when it's built. But the seller is still responsible for disclosing that. If they don't, the buyer, by law, can make the seller buy the house back. The only one I've seen so far through Trek, the agents were found guilty of non-disclosure. It behooves us to do a little bit of research. Most of the time, it's going to be on the tax record. You can always ask the seller if they pay any taxes outside of the property taxes. They'll get a separate bill for it. Like I said, HAR has done a really good job of getting it together. Any questions about paragraph 6? Easy peasy. Paragraph 7, property condition. How is property sold in the state of Texas?
As is.
As is. The way it is when you're in there and make the offer is the way you're getting it. Now with A, it says seller shall permit buyer and buyer's agents access to the property at reasonable times. Buyer may have the property inspected by inspectors selected by buyer and licensed by Trek or otherwise permitted by law to make inspections. Any hydrostatic testing must be done separate. There's a separate form that the seller's going to have to pay for. Seller shall permit buyer and buyer's agent access to the property at reasonable times. Listing agents, buyer's agents, you can't say they can't do inspections until they've deposited the earnest money and option money. No, as soon as it's executed, they have rights to access that property. And we get that. Listing agents saying, no, you haven't given us the option money. We don't want you going in the property. You can't do that. You're putting the seller at the fault. Because it's on there, you don't have to put in special provisions that the buyer will do a walkthrough. They have the right to it in paragraph 7A. All right, seller's disclosure. Do you have it? 1. If you don't have it, 2. Within how many days?
So
I
maybe
like
Can we go back to that last one? What's my defense against the buyers who send an offer, get under contract, and then send a termination without giving any option fee? They've already been in the house, they've already inspected, they got an inspection and they're weary, and I don't have nothing in my hands to show my client.
Until they pay the option, they don't have the exclusive right to back out of the contract. Even if it's within those first 3 days, they have to pay the option before they can terminate based on the
So they
option.
could visit it.
They could visit it, they could have it inspected, they could decide, I'm not going to purchase this home.
But they have to pay the
They're
option.
gonna have to give that option money before they can terminate.
And I hear you, I'm with you. If they still don't, what's my client's resolve? To go fight
Don't
some
terminate it,
dollars, get an attorney?
get an
No
attorney.
Oh.
I don't like that.
I know.
That actually happened when we had my mom's house under contract, but she said, forget it. She just wanted to move on. And so we
That's
just
what a
let
lot of
them,
people are gonna do for a couple $100, $500, just let them go. Let me get it back on the market.
That's why Maryland says she makes $1,000 termination fees instead of letting people get her off the market for $75.
I have no issue with that. I think listing agents accept way too low for option.
Cause it's marketing, you're losing money.
Yeah,
Pull
you're
it
asking
off.
the seller to take it off, because even though it says it's option period, how many agents show a home that's under option? How many agents should show a home that's under option? Everybody. Yeah. So yeah, make it worth the while of that seller. When you're going to extend an option, it must be paid for. That's what the state of Texas says. An option period must have consideration. So if they put 0 on that, they haven't purchased an option period. They do not have the exclusive right to back out of a contract. Listing agents, make it worth it. They're gonna say, okay, we want another 5 days to just walk away because the wind was blowing the wrong direction. With the seller's disclosure, best practice, don't go under contract until you have it. You can have 1 or 2 days to get it. Where it's an issue is you see something on the seller's disclosure that the buyer would have never made an offer on the property. They would have never paid $500 for the exclusive right to back out. Best practice, listing agents, get it and put it on the MLS. We've run into this week because we had a hurricane. They went in the contract. They had 2 days. We didn't have electricity. They didn't have internet. So they could never get the seller's disclosure over. Seller's in default of the contract and buyer terminated. So go ahead and put it on there as soon as you get it. I had a client that did not want to see a house if the roof was more than 7 years old. Before I could show a property, I had to if it wasn't online, get a hold of the listing agent and find out.
So for the seller's disclosure, let's say you're on the listing party. What if like they fill it out and they make mistakes when filling out the seller's disclosure?
They make mistakes.
Or they don't know, like, for example, I don't remember if it's the seller's shield but there was one that asked the dimension of the rooms, things like that.
That's not on the seller's disclosure, that'd be on the MLS.
That would be the MLS.
MLS.
But for the seller's disclosure,
If
it's like,
it's
oh, their roof is like 10, 25.
Yeah, if it's an honest mistake, there's nothing they can do. But if the seller's withholding material facts, well, then the buyer would have a case. It's that seller.
So as a listing agent, do you need to double, triple check what they are filling out? Like,
I would ask them questions, like if they tell you the roof is 9 years old, but they've lived in the home for 20 years. My home, we've lived in it for 19 years. We've never had the roof replaced. So it is on the seller's disclosure, it says approximately my roof is years old. And they need to be honest, and it says on there that they are answering it true and correct as of best of their knowledge as of the date it's signed. If anything changes, they need to update it. And number 3 is the seller is not required to furnish the notice under the Texas Property Code. When does a seller not have to provide a seller's disclosure?
When it's a new home.
New home, never lived in,
Probate.
probate, it's being sold by the estate of.
Oh,
Foreclosure, bank owned.
So this is like law.
When
Yeah,
it's
that's
family to
all.
family.
Family to family. And the other one that we probably run into is trust. A trust does not have to provide a seller's disclosure.
Oh, forgot.
Most people don't know that, and so they usually will provide it, which is great.
Would a 1031 exchange because they're a
Nope.
trust?
It'll say on there, XYZ Trust. As the owner of the property. 7C. So, lead-based paint. If the house was built before 1978, they must provide a lead-based paint disclosure. Maryland talks about this form as being a $100,000 form. It is the only federal form that we use here. She says 100,000 because there's 4 sections to it, and a judge granted like 25,000 per question that wasn't answered when they found lead in the property. Get it, disclose it. This is the only form addenda that your signature is going to be on. We have to sign it as the agent.
On a different house, I met a buyer on that lived on the area. He's like, I just got home like a few months ago, and I want to do some renovations, and turns out it had asbestos. So I can still live on the home, but she was telling me these stuff.
Mhm.
And my friend was like, you know, go back to traffic.
It
Put it
depends.
on the back. Even the seller that
They know about. If the house was built back in the 70s and it's been sold 2 or 3 times, most likely that that seller is not going to be aware of asbestos.
yeah, but that person, as the buyer, can still go after the inspection person that didn't.
They don't inspect for asbestos. That's not part of the inspection.
So it is possible.
It is possible, yeah. It's possible that the house will have mold in it. The seller truly did not know there was mold growing in there. The inspector they didn't pay for a mold inspection. If the house is ever flooded, get a mold inspection. Except-
Just FYI, whoever's talking, we can't hear the other piece. We just hear,
okay.
I need it, I don't know, you let us know.
She was just talking about asbestos. Did y'all hear that part?
I have a question. Whenever you said that if a home has been flooded, it's best to get it inspected. But what constitutes flooded? Meaning, what about if there's water up to the steps and it's it's a moat around you? Is that flooded, or is it running water that's
Property.
in your house?
Yeah, water that went into the property.
Okay,
Or let's say commode or
okay.
backs up, that would be,
Cause I'm
Getting inspection.
thinking the weep holes and water goes in there and I'm thinking,
then if it goes through the weep holes, then it's flooded.
oh, okay.
Okay, acceptance of property. Property is as means the present condition of the property with any and all defects without warranties except warranties covered in title. Hey. Check 1. Buyer accepts the property as is. Or buyer accepts the property as is provided seller at seller's expense shall complete the following specific repairs or treatments. This is gonna be something that you see, something very specific. You go in and there's a hole in the sheetrock in the master bedroom. So the buyer could put on here, seller to patch the hole, paint the wall in master bedroom. Fence is falling down. Seller will replace the fence. Can you put in here that the seller will have the home professionally cleaned? Yeah, you can put that in there, that the seller will have the house professionally cleaned. What else should I write with that?
Within 48 hours or 24 hours of closing, because I can have the house cleaned in my normal monthly cleaning professionally, and I.
Yep, they can have my maid come in tomorrow and clean the house. Has it been professionally cleaned? She is commercially engaged. Yes, you followed the contract. But then we have another 45 days before closing. Be specific. It's in the contract. So be very specific. I've seen stretch the carpet. These are things that the buyer sees right away that, no, I don't like this. I want it done, but I don't want to have to negotiate it with repairs. Does not mean they can't do inspections. And it says right on here, do not insert general phrases such as subject to inspections. I don't see that anymore. When this was first added to the contract, we did see a lot of agents writing in there subject to inspection. No, we negotiate that later. Who pays for lender required repairs?
It's negotiable.
It's negotiable. Neither party has to pay for it. But if they don't pay for it, they're gonna walk away from the contract, so they're not gonna get the loan. It's a material fact, so seller's gonna have to disclose it.
So you're saying the mortgage or the company won't negotiate, like if we say, okay, we'll deduct it 1,000 to fix the, no?
Sometimes they will, but they want you to put the money into escrow. Then
Okay,
you have to find someone that's gonna hold the escrow. And what they'll do with that is after it's corrected, they send an inspector out to make sure it's corrected before they release that money that's in escrow. So the buyer's gonna pay for it up front. Completion of repairs and treatments. Seller shall complete all agreed repairs and treatments prior to closing, obtain any permits. Repairs and treatments must be performed by persons who are licensed to provide such repairs or treatments, or if there's no license, commercially engaged. I used to be able to say if they were in the yellow pages, they're commercially engaged. Well, that doesn't apply anymore. So they have to have a company. Like we say, professional cleaning, it needs to be a professional cleaning company. They do it for multiple people. Now, let's say you, outside of here, you negotiated for the fence to be repaired. And it just means going out there and replace some of the boards that come loose. Do you really want to hire a fencing company to come out and nail boards? The buyers and the sellers can agree in writing that the seller can complete those repairs. They can agree to that. I would never want them agreeing to anything like electricity or plumbing, anything like that. And then this is what was added. Seller shall provide buyer with copies of documentation from the repair persons showing the scope of the work, payment of the work completed, and at a seller's expense arrange for transfer of warranties. That's what you were talking about, and it's in the contract. I still see people writing in special provisions. You can't do that. You don't put anything in special provision where there's an addenda or it's covered in the contract. It's in there. As agents, follow up on it, don't wait till right before closing to be asking for these and see if it's done. Environmental matters, buyers advise that the presence of wetlands, toxins, including asbestos, and waste or other environmental hazards or presence of a threatened endangered species or its habitat may affect buyer's intended use. Buyers concerned about these matters and addenda promulgated by TREC or required by parties to be used. There's an environmental form.
Mitch, I have a completion of repairs treatments.
Okay,
Especially with all that's going on, you're under contract now, the seller has to get these things fixed. And I ran into this with, I believe it was Harvey or one of those, where it took like 25 days, so we kept doing extensions and the repairs began to be so good. So it raised the price of the home even. The seller had done such extensive repairs at this point, they didn't want to sign any more extensions. They had already passed the 5-day extension and they just forced the buyer to terminate. And they put their house back on the market for 30 grand more and got it.
you got it. Now, if the lender required repairs or grade exceeds 5% of the sales price, they can terminate.
Yeah, it's definitely over 5% of the sales.
And right now, what I'm getting questions about is lenders are requiring another inspection before they'll close because of Burl
Yeah.
last week.
So if a lender requires another inspection, who has to pay for that other
The
inspection?
buyer.
The buyer.
Yeah, I've also seen an affidavit, I saw it this morning from a lender, and the buyer and seller have both signed this affidavit that there was no damage to the home for the hurricane.
I had to do one at closing on my house in the freeze. This
Okay,
freeze, we had to sign affidavits, get notarized, all that jazz.
y'all familiar with residential service contracts? Are you familiar with home warranties?
Yeah, the home warranty.
Home warranty is a residential service contract. Use it to confuse you. It's administered by the Department of Regulation. And how much money is the buyer asking the seller to pay for a home warranty?
It's negotiable.
It's negotiable.
What's the
They've been going up about 600 for the year. I like them. I think they're going to protect your seller and protect your buyer.
It's like a warranty, like you selling something and you give it warranty, kind of like cars and get extended warranty because it was used. And it's within,
Kinda.
kind of like
But
that.
it covers the interior of the house. It'll cover plumbing, electrician, hot water heater,
Like
AC.
the big stuff.
Yeah, the big stuff. You can
Oh.
pay more and have it cover your washer, dryer, refrigerator, pretty much cover what's attached to the home. And I like it because if I sell my house and a month from now, my hot water heater explodes. Buyers back in, you didn't disclose that. You knew it was a problem. No, I didn't. It's not a new house. I provided a home warranty to you. I had a seller who refused to sell his house unless the buyers got a home warranty. Buyers said, no, we don't want one. We're not going to use one. We've had it before. They're not worth the money. Bob said, no. At closing, he wrote a check to the title company to let them know. He said, buy them a home warranty. Yeah, it was a rural property, had a septic system. And he said, these kids that are moving from Houston are
To the
gonna
city.
mess up
I mean, to
this,
the country.
are
Yeah,
gonna mess up this septic system
yeah.
within the first year.
Yeah.
He insisted. He was also the seller that had multiple offers, asked for highest and best, accepted the highest and best, but told him he would sell it to him for the average of the other ones. He didn't take the most money. He took the average of the other offers. Yeah. He's now becoming a priest, so that's probably why.
Oh, but that's cool though, cause it's
Mhm.
true, the septic tanks, I was raising. so
Right.
They're paying.
If you put too much stuff in them or you use the wrong type of toilet tissue, it messes them up. All right, so that's residential service contract. Broker and sales agent. If you have ownership of the property, you have ownership, any part, 10% ownership in the trust or the company that owns it, disclose it. If you are related to the buyers or sellers, disclose it. If you have a long-term relationship with the buyer or seller, disclose it. I represented my nephew when he bought his first house. I disclosed it. Didn't legally have to because at the time I wasn't legally married, so he wasn't legally my nephew, but I known him since he was 5 years old. So what do they say? I'd rather disclose. If you walk down that hallway and you're coming down there, you say, hey, do I need to disclose? You're gonna hear Bill, Jocelyn, and myself saying yes, even before you tell us what it is. Because you have to ask, disclose. People have not gotten in trouble for over disclosure. Closing of the sale of the property will be on or before X date or within 7 days after objections are cured. 30, 45 days, check with the lender. If it's gonna be quicker, check with the lender, check with title that they can get it done. Never close on a Friday?
Never,
Never. Never close on the end of the month?
never,
Never close right after a holiday?
never close during transmittal. That's never. Oh,
No, you don't want to close on a Friday, have something go wrong and that doesn't fund. And you've got a seller who's sitting there with everything packed up and you've got a buyer sitting there with a truck outside and they can't move in.
never, never.
Give it some time. All right.
Mitch,
At
would you say
closing,
that paragraph automatically gives us 7 days? We don't have to make,
after objections,
that's just after objections. If there's
after objections.
objections, we do in fact need an amendment extending the close date.
I think I went past in, disasters. If there's a natural, disaster,
I think
yeah,
that's,
it's automatically will be extended. They're gonna get a general warranty deed. Buyer shall pay the sales price in good funds acceptable to escrow agent. Buyers, escrow agent's not gonna take cash. There will be no liens, assessments, or security interest against the property which will not be satisfied out of sales proceeds. Solar system, solar power. Private transfer fees, as defined by Texas Property Code, will be the obligation of the seller unless provided otherwise in this contract. Transfer fees assessed by Property Owners Association are governed by the addenda for Property Owners Association. Possession, what are they gonna move into the house? Is it gonna be at funding, at closing and funding? Or is the seller going to lease the property back? Or the buyer's gonna move in early, don't do that. Yeah, just don't do a buyer's temporary. If they don't get the loan, all of a sudden they are a tenant. And you may end up having to try to evict them, which is a court, and it takes so long. Buyers don't move in early. During the, when the market was so hot, we had issues with sellers that would not move out. Because they did a lease back and then the house they were trying to purchase fell through. They had no place to go and they refused to move. If you're doing a seller's lease back, make sure the buyer is checking with their insurance carrier that they are even going to allow it. If you're doing a lease back also, you must provide the residential lease flood disclosure. And that's a great form. It's the buyer telling the seller that that property has not flooded in the last 5 years and that it is or is not in a floodplain. 100-year floodplain, something like that. See the issues with that? Y'all donate to Tree Pack? Yes, no? Yeah, our,
No, I have issues.
what?
No, I have issues.
You have issue, I know that, but we're not talking about those issues.
I did have
Tree
a,
Pack pushed that through at the last legislature to have it changed to remove short-term leases, which was agreed upon by the legislature, and then the governor vetoed it. So we still have to tell the seller, the buyer who's never lived in the house has to tell the seller whether or not it's flooded. Okay, here's smart devices, and I've suggested that this be moved up to paragraph 2. Smart devices mean a device that connects to the internet or enable remote use, monitoring, and management of the property, items identified with non-realty items addenda, items fixture leases. 1, deliver buyer written information containing all access codes and users name. That's what I talked about earlier. Have it all changed. It's really easy to hand it to them. Terminate and remove all access connections and improvements. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to delete my app that monitors house. And you're going to tell your buyers, okay, right now sit down and change it. Special provisions. What can you put in special provisions?
Nothing, that's what you're teaching us.
Yeah, that's what we've always been told. Nothing, you don't put anything, and you still don't unless you bring it clear with somebody. Yes, anything that is if this, then that, you're practicing law. Now, you can use this paragraph, remember we talked about the title, and we were gonna split it. So in special provisions, you could put, seller's title policy will be split 50-50. Or you could put in here, seller will pay 80%, buyer will pay 20%. You can tell the title how to split it up. You have that really long legal description, you can put it in here. This paragraph is intended to be used only for additional informational items and an informational item is a statement that completes another blank in the contract. Discloses factual information, provides instructions. Real estate brokers and sales agents are prohibited from practicing law and shall not add to, delete, or modify any provision of this contract unless drafted by the party or attorney of the party. So you can't write anything that's going to change the remedies or the responsibilities of either party. You're going to need to get a lawyer to do that. If you have a party that wants you to put something in here, they can. We're going to recommend in writing that they have it reviewed by an attorney. For me, I would rather have them write you a PDF and sign it, get the other party to sign it, and then in paragraph 22, we're going to attach it. There's no question. Mitch did not write this. It came from them, and here's the documentation that they sent.
And they see attached.
You get to put like
A attachment.
However you want to label it. Settlement and other expenses. Talks about the expenses payable by the seller. Seller shall also pay an amount not to exceed X dollars. This is the buyer asking the seller to pay part of their closing costs. Why? That's a question I always ask when I got one. It's like, are they trying to keep cash in their hand? Or can they not afford the house? When they've tried to keep cash in their hand, because they're gonna have to buy a washer, they have to buy a dryer, and they have to buy a refrigerator. We recently listed a property for sale And the seller told us, you know, I'll leave the washer and dryer refrigerator. Let's hold those back. We'll get to negotiations. Now, we want X dollars for closing costs. Why? Well, they don't have that much cash. Let me talk to my seller. Hey, let's throw in the washer, dryer, refrigerator. You can use it, you know they're going to do it. Throw it in.
And then once that's established, then can you put that in special provisions and see exhibit?
It's gonna be a non-royalty.
Not,
It is that non.
dang it.
The amount, you're gonna have to check with the lender and make sure it's approved amount. If let's say they put $100,000 in here, closing costs are $5,000. Mr. Buyer, you're not gonna get $95,000. It stays with the seller. We've had that come up. Well, it said 2,000 in here, but it only costs 500, so I want that other money. No, it stays with the seller. Then it talks about what the buyer's gonna pay for. Prorations for the tax year, interest, rents, regular, periodic, maintenance, and assessments. Basically, seller pays for the amount of time they're in the house, buyer pays for the amount of time they own the house. Casualty loss, here it is, okay. If any part of the property is damaged, destroyed by fire or other casualty after an effective date of this contract, seller shall restore the property to its previous condition as soon as reasonably possible, but in any event by the closing date. If seller fails to do so, to factors beyond seller's control, buyer may terminate the contract and get their money back. We had the hurricane last week.
Okay,
Shingles flew off the roof.
after, it says after the effective date.
Yeah, you've got you're under.
You're during, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
you've got it.
Not ex- Okay. It has to be fixed before they go to close on it, okay.
If they cannot, right now, trying to get a roofer, you're not gonna do it, let's say when this is in effect. So at that point, the buyer may terminate, get their earnest money back. Extend time for performance up to 15 days. Accept the property in its present damaged condition with an assignment of insurance proceeds. So the buyer can say, yeah, the insurance is gonna pay for the roof. The insurance is gonna agree to write the check to the new owner. They can do that and move forward with the contract.
So, Mike, with the hurricane we just had, if somebody's great big tree went down, didn't damage the home,
The
but it's
home.
now gone, does the homeowner need to put in a new tree?
That is going to be negotiable. Yeah, that's a hard one. You can't put in a 100-year-old tree.
Right.
And they may negotiate just to have it removed. Something like that. Okay, default. Buyers or sellers can be held in default. We all agree that we'll mediate. Whoever loses is gonna pay. Escrow agent is not party to the contract. At closing, earnest money must be applied first to any cash down payment and buyer's expenses. If let's say they terminate under the option period, but Mr. Seller refuses to release the earnest money, it tells you what to do. Do a written notice to the escrow agent, they're gonna send it to the seller, demanding it. This is where you usually get it released. Damages. Any party who wrongfully fails or refuses to sign a release acceptable to the escrow agent within 7 days of receiving the request will be liable to the other party for damages, earnest money, reasonable attorney fees, and all costs of the lawsuit. So that $2,000 they didn't want to release could easily be astronomical. The one that I heard about, the buyer refused to release the earnest money. They took them to court, and the court awarded the buyer would release it to the they were just trying to walk away, and they said, no, we want the earnest money, and then they said, no, we're not gonna give it to you. So they took them to court, and the court awarded them the earnest money. The buyer had to pay for the seller's representation. They had to pay for the court costs, and damages were the cost of having the home for the amount of time they couldn't sell it. So the mortgage, the escrow, the utilities. The judge says you wouldn't let them sell it, so this is what you owe. So a couple of $1,000s ended up being multi-tens of $1,000s. Yeah. Read this, and they're most likely gonna see the light. Representation, all covenants, representation, and warranty survive the contract. If the seller is a foreign person, as defined under the tax code, the buyer may have to keep funds back so that they make sure the seller pays the taxes
For the year or for the buying and selling?
for all of it. For the year, for the property taxes that, whatever it's gonna be on.
So when it's a buyer, when it's a foreign buyer, it's not a problem?
It's
But
not
when
a problem, it's only when they go to sell it. And I didn't know, Uncle Sam's gonna get their money. So if that seller did not disclose or the buyer didn't hold the monies back, Uncle Sam's gonna get it from whoever owns the property. All right, all notices from one party to the other must be in writing and are effective when mailed to, hand delivered, or transmitted by fax or electronic transmissions as follows. Where does the buyer want information to go to? Where does the seller want information to go to? When we talked about title commitment, it says in there that it will be delivered as per paragraph 21. It needs to be there. And I know you get agents that will say, well, I don't want them talking. Whose contract is it? It's not ours. They have a right to talk. And you want to know, let's say you are terminating that. It's something of time of the essence. Send it to all parties. Send it to the seller, send it to the agent, send it to the buyer, send it to the buyer's agent. So you will not meet compliance unless there's addresses and contact information on both sides. And plus, I mean, Trek put it in here, so you know they think it's important, and they also added it to Legal One. And what they added in 22 was CC for us. You want a copy, buyer wants a copy, buyer's agents. What I didn't know, there's a lawyer out of Dallas who has a Facebook page, and he was talking about this. If you only have your information here, without any contact information, and they don't come to an agreement and they go to a lawsuit, the court is going to use the contact information that's in here. If it's only your information, court's going to send you everything and you're responsible for making sure the party gets it. I don't want that. Agreement between parties. This is only addenda, like the question we had when we first started. Most common third-party financing addendum for property subject to mandatory membership in a property owners association. You'll see loan. Very, very rarely do we see loan assumptions, a little bit more lately because of the interest rates. Addendum for sale of other property. So the buyer can't afford to buy this house until I sell my existing home. Realize when you come to my addendas class, we talk about that. If they don't get the funds by the date that's on that form, it's an automatic termination. Oil and gas, a backup contract. So you have an executed contract. How many backup contracts can you have? It's a trick question.
Just one.
Just one.
One.
And backup offers, but you can only have one backup contract. And that means that if this one terminates for any reason, like they get out during the option period, that backup contract becomes number one. With the backup contract, they have to perform. The buyer's gonna deposit the earnest money, they're gonna deposit the option money. A buyer with a backup offer will never get their option money back. They'll get the earnest money back, but they'll never get their option money back, even if they never go in the first place. The way the state looks at it is you have the exclusive right to back out from the time you execute that to the time it comes in the first place, plus however many days you have for the option. Hydrostatic testing. Addendum concerning right to terminate due to lender's appraisal, only for only for conventional loans. Can't use it for FHA, VA. It's all in paragraph 4, the third party financing. The environmental assessments, I see this more like down by the coast, Galveston. I know there were some issues up in the Woodlands years ago where they recommended we use this. Seller's temporary residential lease, whatever is in paragraph 10. Short seller addendum, we haven't seen those a lot. Addendum for property located seaward of the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway. Where's the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway? Thank you for the question. Where?
Located at Seaward. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. If you can't answer that question, you're not confident to sell on the island. Because the intercoastal waterway runs between the mainland and Galveston Island.
The
Anything-
mainland
Yeah.
and Gal, okay.
So you have to disclose that. Lead-based paint, propane gas, residential leases, fixture leases, PID, and then other. There's one addenda that we've requested that they add to this for years. It's used all the time. Non-realty. Why not just put a box in? So any other addenda, most likely it's gonna be your non-realty. If you had them write the PDF for special provisions, this is where you put see attachment A. It ties everything together to the contract. All right, attorneys. What do we say? If the seller has an attorney, run. What do you do if the buyer has an attorney? Run. What happens if they both have an attorney? Run faster. That's
To the attorney.
Oh, yes, and it depends on what type of attorney is. We had one, I was a listing agent. He was an attorney and the buyer was an attorney. He had been in the business for 40-some years. He had been in the business for maybe 14 weeks. So he knew everything and this guy knew everything. It got down to the point they were like, well, this needs to say the and it says the. And what did I do? I'll figure it out. Once you come to an agreement, let me know and I'll finish it. It's always fun. When can you execute a contract? And
Communicated.
Yeah. So who puts the execution date in? Yeah, can the other person put it in there? Yes.
Better.
Just make sure that's in there. Check it. What I see.
So the last person who signs it is kind of closing the deal and they put that date.
Yeah, well, once, if I'm the listing agent, once my sellers are normally last ones to sign, then I call you and I email it over to you and say, we've got a contract, I'm gonna go ahead and execute. Now, if it's like we've had happen, they send it over at 9 PM on Saturday. And they put the execution date on Saturday. Well, no, it hasn't been communicated. It's after business. It should be communicated, executed for the next day when they truly can communicate to everybody. And plus, if it's your buyer's losing a day of their option. You know, Yeah. When we did have one where it was us and it really hurt me. When the agent was going back and forth about the execution date, he was saying it needs to be the next day. You didn't send this until 11 p.m. And the listing agent said, no, it's today. Here's the email where you said, thank you, I got it. So he communicated at 11 p.m. That buyer's agent said, yes, I got it. So it was communicated and they executed it. All right. Page 10. Page 10 is after the signature, so it's not part of the contract, but Trek wants us to fill it out. Fill it out completely. Other broker, buyer's agent, listing broker, who they represent the buyer only or the seller only, or is it an intermediary where the broker represents the buyer and the seller? Associate's name, team name if there is one, email addresses, licensed supervisor. For us, it's going to be me and with my license number.
601107.
Yeah. And then the addresses for the buyers and sellers, brokers. Keller Williams Memorial 9000862. If it's intermediary, both agents are going to go on the right-hand side. And then you have the receipts, page 11. A lot of times when you send this over to title, they're going to send this back. Okay, it is 3 o'clock. Is there anything y'all want to look at?
I do have a question. I believe it's in the survey part that after, we close and it gives a certain amount of days, the survey, and that they could, like, in other words, it's almost sounds like they're extending an option period. So like you can negotiate an option period, but then they'll go somewhere else and then try to add the days in there. But is it the survey? Where is it at?
The survey is also. Yeah,
But where is it at?
Survey.
Yeah, where is it at? Right there. Right, hold on.
Well, this is, if you see something on the survey,
Within blank days of the effective date of the contract? No?
this is gonna be the number of days. So
Yeah,
If you
it's
see
that one.
something in the survey, then they would object to it with the number of days, and that's when the seller has to correct it,
Okay,
okay? Under the seller's disclosure, accept the property act. If they do not provide it, they have another 7 days to back out of the contract for any reason.
okay, the one that I always get stuck on is the survey, so can you kind of help me on that one? So, scroll up, because I'll negotiate no option period, because I
Well,
don't like pulling it off the market, like you say, right?
uh-huh.
But then they'll try to put it in here.
Well, it has, they can't just terminate. They have to object to the survey for some reason, and then the seller has an opportunity
Within
to
blank days.
correct it.
after
This
the-
is for them to get the survey.
So then let's say, for example, that you say that the homeowner, they can't find the survey. So then we go to the title company, open title, contracts been executed. So then it's up to the buyer, right, to get the survey going, if that's negotiated.
If number one says the seller is gonna provide the existing survey, the T7,
No, okay, but let's say I put the seller,
the seller.
the seller's gonna purchase it, yes, sir.
Okay, they've got X number of days to purchase it, provide it to the seller, to the buyers.
No, perdón, sorry, I meant the buyer. The buyer is going to purchase the survey,
Okay,
okay? And then they'll put in there something about the days. Hold on a second. I always get confused, and that's where I need help to understand. So within the effective date, the buyer shall obtain a new survey. Deem receive this on the day, okay. So I need to make sure that they do number 2. That's
Yeah.
the buyer.
It's on, the earnest is on the buyer to get surveyed.
Okay, that's, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Seller, okay.
Same thing with the HOA. Whoever pays for it, they need to get it in that 90 days.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
No other questions? No other agenda you want to look at?
No,
For the one.
Things got messed around with this. And some of my compliance classes were replacing with the new forms. Monday, Marilyn's gonna do her risk management at 1 o'clock, and it's all about the listing with the new forms and the guidelines. So if you want to be to that.
Right,
It's gonna
and
be
probably
Zoom.
watch the last one. We'll
And
probably
watch
wanna-
last one. This one's just gonna be for the sellers, and before August 16th, she's gonna do one for buyers with the new seller. Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you for everybody who was online.
Thank you, Mitch. I
Thank
need
you, Mitch.
I need
Appreciate
to-
you.
challenge